Hey guys, it's Melm. Welcome into the APAC viewer guide before their playoffs start. I've got two guests with me, both who are ready for bed as I've woken up early to give you context for this fun time talk. I'm very wide awake, as you can tell. I've got Jay Beto and Osme with me, two casters and players currently competing in the APAC region for the Founders Series. And with playoffs around the corner, I figured what better way to give you a viewer guide of what to watch for as you go into playoffs, whether you want to tune into their Twitch streams or check out their VODs, and talking to two casters and two guys who are actually in the grind playing themselves. So guys, good morning. Jay Beto, how are we feeling?
Not too bad, not too bad.
Heck yeah, Osme, you pumped up too?
Yeah,
I gotta do the wake up checks each time, you know.
No, we're
keep
getting ready
awake
to go to
checks.
bed.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So playoffs, it's been a long grind. So far, the season's been really exciting. I've gotten to watch a lot of it. We've done the recaps on Smite Too Long Didn't Watch, and it's been a lot of fun. But very recently, with playoffs starting, I believe they start this weekend. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, right before playoffs, you guys had a pretty insane roster apocalypse. I mentioned it on Smite Too Long Didn't Watch, but almost 20 roster changes. What's been going on? What happened?
Do you want to take that?
Yeah, lots of my team was directly affected by it, but generally lots of movement amongst teams who really kind of want to break in or compete for the top positions and ultimately the money prizing. I think that's the main goal. Some new team members joining teams were a little indecisive. Indecisiveness spread. People got ideas. People got the zoomies. They're coming up with new rosters on the spot, not telling anybody, saying yes to one thing, saying yes to another thing, and then it all just was a big fire. And everything burnt down, and some teams escaped out of the damage, and some teams were left in the ashes, I suppose you could say. And
impressively political answer from you, I gotta say.
Yeah, I try to be impartial. I know some people might not be as impartial as me, but I think there are some exciting teams that have come out from it. Like we see 99% Engage.
Yeah,
they were a mix of two teams. Like they're two of. I'll be a bit more feisty here. They stole my support.
There it is. That's what I was looking for.
They stole another team member. They made one of my other team members leave for a different team. And then they kicked three of their members and made this other, I suppose you could say, like super team kind of thing. And it's a good team though. So I'm a bit impressed with how they've been playing. Yeah.
I think it's a real OCE thing, to be honest. It feels like it's happened quite a few times where, like, right in the middle of a season, a few teams will kind of explode. And it normally stems from the idea of, like, middle teams not wanting to actually just like fully sit down and work on the issues that the team has. Typically because the top teams will all be friends. Like they played together for years. On our interview, it's your boy Sean, or what's his name in game? Is it Platinum Pete, right?
Pete.
That's his in-game name. Said that and Vintage as well. They both said about each other. They've played together for years. They always team together. But other teams who don't have as strong relationships tend to value just finding a better player. It's always like a grass is always greener on the other side kind of thing.
Sure, yeah.
I've definitely been a part of those in teams that I've had where you like message in Discord like, oh, this player entered this scrim or this game, whatever, and then you start talking with someone else like, oh, I'll jungle for you or whatever, and then it kind of just happens.
It makes a lot of sense too, but it is crazy, like you said, to happen right before playoffs. It's one of those things where for the teams that did it, it obviously feels amazing because you feel more sort of stacked up and packed and ready to go for playoffs. But for like you, Osma, you have your roster picked apart. That's negative fun, especially because at that point you're already kind of looking for your wins where you can grab them. So certainly a little frustrating to see the better teams get better and the teams who are on the grind have to restructure at least a little bit. But with those playoffs around the corner, on Smite Too Long Didn't Watch, we've definitely hit on the point that Fish and Sunday School have been the favorites from the get-go and have been performing like favorites. So if you guys don't mind, what makes those two teams really great before we dive into some of the other teams?
I think there's a lot of long time synergy between lots of those players. Jay Beto and I did our research before, and out of the past 5 seasons of the Smite OCL, starting in 2022, the players from Sunday School and Fish have been taking out first place in all of those competitions.
Pretty much
consistently.
In the first or second.
Wow.
Every season,
And partnerships have been there, like Sean or Platinum Pete. I think he's won 4 out of the 5 competitions that we've had in OCL so far. And I think there is definitely a higher end of players that consistently stays in that conversation in OCE, and there are some players that will break into that conversation. But
have they been getting coached long?
I think they frame themselves as OCE's last hope when Smite 2 came out. Okay,
fair.
So they really, really went hard there. Or OCE's last chance, I think they called themselves.
I don't know anything about this.
So I think they really locked in with Sharks then and started their coaching journey, but I'm not too sure about before then, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of the players have either gone to Worlds or have had experience playing with players who had. So, like Yada, who's on Fish, went to Worlds. Shank,
I don't think he did he?
I think he did. He might not have. I thought he did. But Shank did. He's the main support for Sunday School. He has some internet and computer problems, so he's been getting subbed out every week. But he is a premier player, like one of our best players. I would say our best if he was playing consistently. And then I think I don't know what it is about them just playing together all the time, playing off of each other. They're always together. I think that's a really important thing in a MOBA specifically, where so many quick, fast decisions happen, and having trust in your teammates is like such a massive thing.
Yeah.
Like when I was first playing and I was learning a lot about comming and decisions in the early days, something that I was actually on Dice Heart's team a lot. He taught me a lot back in the day. Something that he really hammered home was a call is immediately incorrect if anyone on the team goes against that call. No matter how good or bad the call was, it's immediately void because the play wasn't executed properly.
Right, because there wasn't a full commit from the team.
Pretty much, yeah. For someone like Sunday School, though, that's a very basic concept. Like, they will just do that naturally, and they play off of each other. Sean, Platinum Pete, has such a great mind for the game. Like, we heard in his comms, he just read the exact play that they were going for, that I think it was 99% engage were going for, and they all played off him perfectly. The comms
they had the other casters impressed
quiet.
too, from North America, like Gore and J-Mac and I, or even Charlie, were all like, whoa, did he just call that? Like, that's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I'd be really excited, hopefully, to see some of our top teams with like 1, 2, 3 seeds in, like an international setting. I'd be really interested to see like not only how much better they can get from scrimming other teams outside of OC, but also how they would go up against those teams.
What about Fish then? Because Sunday School obviously top of the top. We've seen Fish go up against Sunday School quite a lot. How are they stacking up with playoffs around the corner? Are they still that top 2 team? Have they fallen down at all and been caught up? Have they been caught up on by other teams? How are they looking so far?
I think that from my perspective, I think Osher, the solo laner, he did go to Worlds. I can 100% guarantee that. He's a great player. He's just coming back though from a massive break. I think he told me the other day that he hadn't played since like 2018, 2019. So he's really coming back into form. Simply, the jungler he was jungling on a lot of the teams I'm just looking at on my screen here in the Smite 1 OCL, with It's Your Boy Sean playing a lot of solo lane. So he's had a lot of experience in that. Yada, one of the best mid laners. The main key takeaway that I think for Fish is Flix, the ADC, or
Filks.
Filks.
Yeah.
My bad.
He's quite a young. It's funny. It's very funny. He's quite a young player, and I think that there's a lot of young, specifically like ADC and mid lane players in OCE that are just mechanically insane, but they make a lot of really weird decisions and don't play. Like, I think that when you're looking at an ADC, I'm not a huge Zapman fan as an example, but I think that he is an absolute genius, and it doesn't come from his mechanics. Like Panda Cat, as an example, is a really mechanical ADC. I think of Zapman as just a really intelligent player, positions really well all the time when he's peaked. Like that, I think it was Leviathan's roster with Yarkor on it, that one, where he was like the only not Spanish-speaking player. That's the kind of ADC that I think that someone like Flix could become, but at the moment he's almost entirely mechanics. So as they build him up, I mean, he's surrounded by what I would call veteran players. Yeah. I think that if he steps up and has games, I've talked about it on cast, when he has those peak games and he plays really well, not even in KD, just like where he's never caught on side lane, he's never, like the cost of the fight, he's never able to get picked, that team can peak really hard. But I think the biggest thing for Sunday School, the reason why they're so dominant, is that their early game is just kind of better than everyone else's. Okay. I don't think that necessarily the team fights are like that far away. I think OCE does a pretty good job team fighting, but we talk about it quite a lot on cast. And we see the invades that Sunday School are able to do, and then when teams decided to answer that, which I have been, and I'm sure Osme as well, have been harping about on the cast, like we would like to see this, answering the invades, specifically solo side invades, they overcommit to that invade, and then instead Sunday School will change up their game plan and go Gold Fury as an example. So I think that's the two things that I would think every team kind of needs to adapt on as they go into playoffs, is being aware of the early game plays that Sunday School are making, and then being able to adapt. And if they're able to do that, I think that like any of the top 4 teams have a really solid chance of doing well.
Yeah, I think Fish are an awesome team. They have so many good Smite minds on their team. Like, I would trust Yada with any Smite game. If he's on my team, I know that I have a very good voice. And I think as a whole unit, they're getting tighter and tighter. But the other teams, the kind of like 3rd, 4th place teams, are also doing that. So there is I think there is a level that every team has to step up to kind of compete with Sunday School, but I think Fish is the closest out of any of the other teams. And we've seen during weeks like Fish has beaten Sunday School. I think that's been their only loss so far. Yeah. So I think they can do it again.
Yeah, I guess that makes a lot of sense too. Just the idea of if you can do it once, why not be able to do it in the big moment too? You've got that extra kind of adrenaline pumping, knowing what's on the line. That could be very interesting to watch for Fish. But you mentioned it even, Osme. So once you get past Sunday School and Fish, who again, strong contenders for number 1, number 2, but you get into the rest of playoffs, because there is a lot going on in playoffs. Where do we look from there? What are some things to look for? Who are the other teams involved? First time tuning into OC, into APAC for Founder Series. What are you looking at for the rest of them?
Well, there's probably, I'd say that there's maybe 3 or 4 other teams probably knocking on that door of that top 2. That being Apes Together. We saw a lot of games from them last week. Then 99% Engage, which is one of the rosters that's come out of all of the roster apocalypse, and they're very strong. They have some good smart brains in there, and they all know what they want to do, which is kind of the most important thing. My roster, I think, has the potential to take games off any of those teams I previously mentioned, being Goblin, and we're still getting over hiccups with like kind of finding new roles and getting our identity back a bit more strong to what it was before all of the roster apocalypses. But then there are some other teams like Raven Guard who have been really promising, and they're really grinding and trying.
Yeah, a couple upset victories for Raven Guard.
Yeah, when my team played against them in one of the earlier weeks, we really underestimated them because we're just like, oh, this is a bunch of nobodies. Like,
no, I literally don't know any of their names either.
Yeah, the same, and they were good. We nearly lost them. So I think that the bottom side of the bracket or the pool still has that desire to win though. So there can be upset games, and there are good players. I think in OC, it's not as much of a mechanical difference. It's more of like a intelligence difference. There's just experience.
Right.
Yeah, it's a knowledge gap, pretty much. Like,
I would agree.
there's just so much knowledge in the upper end.
Yeah,
and
it's
it
fairly
doesn't
comparable
disperse
to NA or
evenly.
EMEA too.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. But I think there is room for upsets in the lower side of the bracket, definitely.
I also think that in in OCL we've typically had like some of the most exciting games being like the losers bracket matches. Like they're so entertaining and so fun to cast and fun to watch because yeah, it's all good to have like great macro being played and like no fights until 30 minutes because we're just trading objectives, which doesn't happen too often. OC is a pretty aggressive region, but it has happened in the past. But when the bottom teams play, it's so like clawy and back and forth, and it's just so enjoyable to watch, in my opinion. So, I mean, if you wanted some absolute, what we would call barn burners, tune into those ones for sure, because they're going to be absolute, yeah, just absolute fests.
We saw a Penta the other day in one of them.
That was
exciting.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did see the Penta kill, which was it was Apes Together Strong got the Penta, correct?
Yeah. What D'Lo was casting.
Yeah, of course. A North American caster comes in for 2 seconds and gets the Penta.
I know,
kill.
he gets the Penta.
Crazy. The actual theme.
Yeah.
I've been bothering about that. I was like, look at you going in and ruining other regions and all their hard work, crazy work from you.
No, he owned it.
Yeah,
he
it was
did a
a
great
really,
job.
it was a good call. It's a cool moment too. And I
Hmm.
feel like that gives a team a lot of momentum and a good boost going into playoffs for sure. Now,
I
Yeah,
think
definitely.
momentum's super important.
for sure, looking at all that kind of as a whole, we talked a little bit about some of the names to focus on Sunday School, Unfished, but who are the, if you had to maybe make I'd say like a top 3 for each of you, who are the players that tuning in for first time for APAC for the playoffs, you're kind of grabbing games you can watch, you're skimming through the VOD, if you see a name, who's a player you should really keep your eye on?
You go first. I've got mine.
I might go role by role. Like players to watch in the solo lane. I think definitely Osha and Texi. 2 Chimps, 1 Trenchcoat has been very impressive lately as
Awesome name too.
well.
Yeah, it's so funny.
He's
I helped him with that name.
He's got yeah, he's been really grinding, and I think he's having great showings. In the jungle, definitely Platinum Pete. Simply, there's a few other good junglers like Scout or Half Guy and Truvy, who plays on
which is
99% engage.
He's an infiltrate in game.
Yeah, middle lane, definitely Yada. Who else? Vintage. I'm going to shout out my boy Rexy. When he was in mid, he was a beast. What's
And
the
then
other
the
roles?
carries.
Oh, support. Tilly Superfan, aka Shank.
Yeah,
Right.
if he plays.
Moving on. ADC, Flix, Thagoras, honestly. These
Yeah.
are some good names for OC, I think.
I'd say 2 Trimshon's Trenchcoat. He's a good friend of mine, like just through Smite at least. I don't know him outside of Smite, but we talk all the time about meta and stuff, and you know, have had rivalries, like fun competitive rivalries in the past in scrims and games. So I like him. I think he's a great player. For jungle, I have to say Platinum Pete or Sean. Like he's if you want to like watch some amazing jungle pathing, just watch how he plays. It's unbelievable. Like he makes it look so easy. For mid, I'd say Vintage, Yada as well. They're both good, but you know, Vintage is on the team that's winning. I think they're both fine. I think that Swifty and Frenzy are also decent. Like I think that I think they're a bit slept on. We had Swifty in for an interview, which was really cool. He's got a crazy good mental about the game. That was a really cool interview to have. For support, I'd say Jed9. I think he's a good player. He's just recently joined a team. I think is he on your team?
He left my team.
Oh, right. Okay.
Fresh wounds.
He's on Engage then.
Yeah,
He's on Engage.
yeah.
He's on the
He's a
roster
beast.
explosion team. And then for ADC, I'd say Furin or Thagoras. I think Tilly's great too. The way that Tilly plays when he's like weak side, which if you're not familiar is when your mainly jungle and support is playing on the other side of the map, you are weak sided. The way that he plays weak side is really good. He's just
I have to agree.
really smart with no vision, no wards. So that's really hard to find in specifically ADCs, in my opinion, because a lot of them have massive egos. It just
Sure.
comes with the role. But he doesn't. He's a really nice guy. So seeing that from a player is really valuable, because a lot of those other ADCs that I would mention would be caught on like cross map plays where you're weak sided and they just push up for a wave, get baited super easy, and then just die, and it's an even trade. When you can not give that over, it's super valuable.
That's interesting. I'm sitting here thinking too, and a lot of the names I've seen in clips are a lot of the names you're mentioning, so that checks out for sure. I think the next big thing then. So we've touched on teams, we touched on players. You've got roles. We'll touch lightly on sort of big meta differences, god differences even, for selections for the actual way the game is played. Is there anything major that's different from maybe regions like North America or EMEA, if you guys watch a lot of those, that a viewer should really pay attention to?
I mean, I tune in a bit to mostly watch the picks. That's normally what I do for like most games that I'm interested in. I just watch the pro and I watch the picks and bans for like any MOBA that I'm interested in, and I kind of check out the builds, what the matchups are like, and then I move on to the next game. I don't have enough time to watch every game, especially when they're like not at great times to watch them live. You touched on the tank jungles quite a bit in the podcast.
Yeah, it really stuck out to me the first time I tuned in how many tank jungles there were, because in North America or EMEA there is a fair bit of hybrid jungles, but it felt like there was a lot of just full-on tank jungles. Yeah,
I don't know where that comes from. Maybe it's like a god pool thing, because I know that lots of us are Thor players, Merc, Pele, like those kind of gods, but maybe it's that. I can't really give a reason. That would be my best guess. The other thing that I think is really interesting about OC is that the Neath prio in our region is insane. It's every single game it's picked or banned.
Even now.
Pretty much. It's still
100%. I'm pretty sure it's like 99.9 or something.
It was one game it wasn't picked.
Wow.
Or banned. So we pick it in almost every game, and I talk about it quite a bit on the cast because I think that it's actually quite a difficult pick to play late game, where you can have a lot of value early game, which we have seen in OCE, but you can also have like no impact late game at all because you're not able to ult like any kind of priority target. And OCE right now, and I think that this is not necessarily a god pool thing, but the gods that have been added typically in my eyes favor like a really front to back kind of pick style based comp, especially now with Ra and Sobek in not this week but the week after. We will see that. So maybe it'll be for finals. Maybe they'll be out. But with those gods being added, it's so pick based. There's no dive. So I think that's where Neath doesn't do super well. I mean, she has a root, she has some CC, but she can't get access to the backline with her ult and do any kind of one shot. So, the Neath prio is a bit weird. We don't have much Baron. We had it for a bit, but then I think Sharks kind of spoke to everyone and said he didn't like it.
For me, as someone who's playing quite a lot, pretty much if you're drafting and you let through Fenrir, you have heavily blundered.
You've lost the game immediately.
You've lost the game. I think Fenrir is like the top prio pick, but it never gets through. So pretty much it's just a handshake. You just get the second pick always has to ban Fenrir.
Yeah.
We see it more and more now where teams are from first are just are trying to leave the Fenrir open, just hoping that second pick might have something that they need to ban. We've seen that a bit in North
America and EMEA as well, where it's like if you see a team sort of baitingly first ban the Baron and then hope that the Fenrir doesn't get banned. Maybe it's like a Loki ban or something, or a mid ban. In that second slot, they can grab up the Fenrir. We've seen that a few times. That sort of dance go through. Because at first it was the idea of if that happened, then you just grab the Baron, or if you had a Fenrir first ban, well, now you say, okay, now we can grab up either the Baron when he was sort of at his strength, and now we've seen a lot of even... we saw some Hercules prio, but that kind of fell off quickly. It's been a lot of that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are certain teams that have picks that are known, and it's not like... like, for example, there's Half Guy. He's a
Loki main.
He's a Loki... I think he played Loki for about, 6 months straight only in Smart 1. And there's picks like Tilly Superfan or Shanks Yamoja. We saw that getting must ban by Fish in sets. And I think if teams have this spice pick that they're really strong with, these teams have such a monopoly on the draft at the moment. And I don't think every team has a pick like that, but I know with only one ban, like you have to decide now. It's like maybe you're not getting Fenrir, but they're getting a god that is just going to insta win in the game. So,
and like you guys said, there's so much prio in Neath too.
Yeah.
Neath is just like, why wouldn't you pick Neath? Like, it's just like a free
if
game.
Everyone's prioritizing getting rid of the Fenrir or dealing with it, that means there's a spot for the Neath, and that's already too locked down. Basically, so I see what you mean.
I mean, Sunday School have had games where they've gotten both Fenrir and Neath, and those games were over basically immediately because Sean would just find people in the jungle with Fenrir like post level 5, and they would just instantly die. So on those invades, I think maybe this happens in every region where you have the top teams kind of setting the meta for whatever region you're a part of, and then the other teams are kind of copying that team because that's what the best thing is, right? And because Sunday School prior their invades so much, especially on solo side, they play towards that side of the map. The Neath gets so much value from them. It's also a flex for mid and ADC as well. So maybe that's why it's priored so much. I think first pick for, right now is just unbelievably overpowered. I think that it's basically insta-win in draft because you're allowed to target ban someone, and in our region, you just have to ban Fenrir or the game's over.
Yeah.
Or it feels like it is at least.
So it makes it an
so you can target. Yeah, when I think that the sides, side selection is a bit of an interesting topic in general because of how many bans there are. When it's when there's 5 each side, so when there's 10 bans, both sides have their attributes, and depending on meta, it can kind of swap. But up until then, it's basically blue side wins every game. Well, it's obviously skill dependent, but like draft, they win every game because it's so easy to get exactly what you want. You're able to first pick something really strong, even if you're giving over 2 picks, and then just instantly pick 2 counters to those. And even if you're giving over last pick, I think that it's an interesting state. I think that we'll see another ban added soon because we're getting quite a few more gods.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if it happens, we'll see how that shakes up for sure. But I feel like that's got the bases covered for sort of a viewer's guide, a watch guide for watching the APAC playoffs. So before we head out, Jay Beto, we'll start with you. Do you guys have any shouts you want to make? Any hellos over to the rest of the APAC team? Please feel free.
I mean, I've always got to shout out everyone behind the scenes, Nuke Ninja, Redacted, all the camera people who do just so much work on the weekends. That's massive days for them. Like actually 12-hour days to get the afternoon stream for us working in Fluent. Like we don't really have to do that much work compared to them. Gangster Sexy, who does all of the graphics. It's really cool to see what everyone does. Obviously, shout out to all the players as well. Yeah. Shout out to all the players who, kind of make it. We can't play without players, obviously, but we also couldn't do it without all the people on the admin team and the production team who make it happen. So, yeah, shout out to all of them.
Yeah, definitely. I think a big shout out just for our region in general. We keep getting portrayed as a passionate, really involved region, and we're a community-run league, and I think it just shows kind of the Australian camaraderie of us wanting to do great together, and I think it really shows that we, as a community, as a scene, as a region, we really want to just see ourselves flourish, and we're doing our best, and I hope we keep doing it.
I'm with you. I hope the same for you guys, and I'm glad to see you guys are doing so well. And I think playoffs will be really, really big for you guys and how they can possibly go down. If you want to see those playoffs yourself on YouTube, you can find the VODs at OCL Smite, and then on Smite Game is where you can actually find the streams on Sundays at 4 a.m. Eastern time for North American viewers. What time is it for you guys that they start for Australian?
6:30.
Yeah,
at 6:30,
7:30 for me.
We have daylight savings, but not in my state. 6:30 or 7:30, depending where you are.
Gotcha. Okay, well, there you go. There's your times. Again, that's on Smite Game. You can find those super early in the morning if you're North America. Be sure to tune in and check them out. At least check out the VODs. Again, OCL Smite. Playoffs are around the corner. You've got your viewer's guide. You're all set up and ready to go. I've been Melm. Thanks again to Jay Beto and Osme for joining me, and a shout out to the entire team, as they mentioned, for working so hard. Always worth taking a peek into the APAC Founder Series to see what is going down under. There, that's my first down under joke. I finally made one. All right, guys, we'll see you next time.